Okay, we're back, and today we're going to be making the famous au gratin potatoes. What you're going to need is I've got 5 peeled potatoes. I've got them soaking in water so they don't change. I've got a medium to large onion cut fine. I've got some butter, real butter, cut into pats, and I've got some grated like American cheese. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some cooking spray and spray my pan, because this thing gets really, it can get really, it'll get stuck if you don't do that. I'm going to take a few butter pats and put them on the bottom layer, maybe 3. And now I'm going to start cutting my potatoes. I've peeled them ahead of time, and I've got them soaking in cold water just so that they don't start turning colors. So I've got my favorite little paring knife with no not serrated edges, and I'm just going to come along and take nice thin slices of the potatoes and just kind of throw them in there. Oops. So I'm going to make a nice layer. What we're going to do is just layer after layer of potatoes of all the various ingredients here. And some I'm going to do every layer. Obviously potatoes get every layer and cheese gets every layer. There's a little bad spot, so I'm going to work around that and come at it the other way. See, I'm going to have to cut this in half. There seems to be a bad spot in the middle. Yeah, look at that. So let's get it out of there. And I have a compost. I don't bring my compost pile. So I'm going to go back and get nice slices. You want them all to be roughly around the same too. If you have one of those slicer things that you can roll back and forth on, you might want to use that. I'm pretty good with my knife here, so I just use my knife. Because if you don't have them the same thickness, then some will be burnt and some will be, still on the raw side, so you don't want that. There's a whole center of this potato's got to be cut out. Let's get rid of that. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do one whole potato, I think, because of the bad spot. You can go, whatever you want. The bottom layer too, everything's going to run down to the bottom, so I might make the bottom layer a little bit thicker than the rest. Okay, so here's my first layer. I've got butter, I've got potatoes. Next thing I'm going to do is put in some flour. Oops. And I'm just going to do a real light sprinkling, just a little dusting of flour. Then I'm going to put in a little bit of sea salt. And then I'm going to put in some onions. Let me pull my knife thing out. Just layer in some, and these are chopped really finely. I use my little mini food processor, my $15 food processor thing that is the greatest invention ever made. And one onion fits perfect in there. This thing is great too to make hummus, which I'll probably be demoing at some point. But anyway, so flour, potato, flour, salt, onion, cheese. And that is one layer. Now I don't have to put everything on every layer necessarily, but this is how you do it. Potato, onion, and cheese are the main ingredients here. So I just want like a light dicing. Again, this is this pasteurized kind of cheese, because it just does do the job as far as melting. It really is the best cheese to use in anything where you're going to have to melt it. I use these in the nachos. I am, however, going to put a layer of cheddar on the very top at the end. I will show you that, because you do want that nice, the way cheddar turns, it kind of gets brown and crispy. Okay, so that's layer 1. Now I've got a potato, and I'm going to start on layer 2. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing. This one doesn't have a bad spot in the middle, so it's going to go, because really you want them kind of round like this. These nice round slices. I had to avoid it last time. I had to change up the plan last time because there was a bad spot in the middle. Oh, this does have a little bit of a bad spot in the middle too. Look at that. Well, it happens. You come across it, you just cut it out and work around it. It's not the end of the world. It happens, with potatoes. This is a meal that's going to be slow cooked, and it's great because like today, it's a really cold winter day. It's like in the teens. The temperature is like in the teens today, like 15 degrees, and I was shoveling snow outside yesterday. And so this is a great meal. I'm going to make this, and it's going to slow cook all day. I'm going to actually make it with some pork chops, which I'll be demoing too. But you just cook it in the oven on a low heat for hours, and it just warms up the house, and it just gives good smells all afternoon long. So I'm going to go just keep going, and I'm going to come back when I've got it all the way up to the top and show you some of the final steps before we put it in the oven. So I'll be back. Okay, so I've got it layered all the way to the top on my au gratin potatoes. Another thing I forgot to mention, this is one of the things I don't use. I use butter every other layer. You don't have to put butter every layer. And I use very thin pats of butter. Because that's one of the good things about this melty cheese is that you don't really, it melt, you don't need butter in it as much because you're using the melty cheese. Okay, now this is all ready to go. The last thing I'm going to do, I've got a measuring spoon. This is 1/4 of a cup. This is the same one I was using on my flour. And I'm going to actually go just a little bit less. Usually I just pour it in. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to go. All right. So I went about 1.5 of these 1/4 cups of milk. Then I'm going to throw a cover on it, throw the lid on it, and throw it in a low heat oven for about 4 hours. I've got it at my oven set up like just about 325, just a little below 325. I'm also going to demo, I'm going to be making some pork chops to go with this, and you throw the 2 of those in the oven and you cook them for a low heat, for a slow cook for around 4 hours. And the whole house warms up on a cold winter day like today. It warms up the whole house, and it gives off these good smells all day long, and it's going to be an awesome meal. So I'm going to throw a lid on this. It's going in the 325 degree oven, and it's going to cook for about 4 hours. And at the very end, we're going to take the lid off and add some cheddar on the top, but not for a long time. It's going to cook with the lid on for a good 3.5 hours, and I'll update you along the way. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, and we're back, and these potatoes are done. And the way you can tell when they're really done is, you can look at them too, but you just stick a fork in them and see if they're soft. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take some. Now I've got some cheddar cheese, and I'm going to take some cheddar cheese and put it over the top. And then I'm going to stick it back in the oven, and I'm just going to stick it back in the oven uncovered from now on, because now the potatoes are cooked. That was our objective, was to get the potatoes cooked and soft, so we wanted them to be really baking. But now our objective is to get this nice brown cheddar cheese over the top of the potatoes. So I'm going to put it back in the oven for about another 15 minutes or so with the cheddar cheese on top. Maybe I need even a little bit more than that. And then it's going to get like a nice, you'll see, it'll be sort of like a hard crusty topping on the top of it, and it's going to be super delicious. So I'll be back in a few minutes to take it back out. Okay, so now the cheddar cheese is melted, and I'm just going to take a spoon and cut into that, and you can see that it's just really gooey and soft and creamy and perfectly delicious. Enjoy.